uses a really interesting all-wheel drive system with no drive shaft down the center of the car. Instead, they use a hybrid system in the front and an electric motor for the rear axle only. And in this video, we're going to find out, is that all-wheel drive system enough to conquer the TFL Slip Test and the trenches course with the Toyota Corolla Cross? This is the TFL Slip Test, and in this test we get various wheels stuck on purpose in these rollers to see how the all-wheel drive system and traction control systems work to get us unstuck. Now this first test is the front wheel slip test. Both front wheels stuck in the rollers, the rear axle is going to have to engage to get us unstuck. Now this is a test that in the past some Toyotas have struggled with, because with this all-wheel drive system, there is no physical connection between that powerful gas engine at the front and the rear motors. Instead, the rear axle is just powered by a single electric motor, and sometimes with previous Toyota products, that electric motor hasn't been beefy enough. And what that means is both front wheels get stuck and the rear end kind of does its best to get us unstuck, but doesn't quite have that torque output. Now, other Toyotas have done really well, like the Crown, but let's see how this Corolla Cross does. So we're in neutral, we're in the normal drive mode, like you drive it every day, even in the winter. I'm not going to engage any special modes, and we're just going to see if we can get unstuck. So foot off of the brake, onto the gas, so you can see those front wheels are spinning. I'm applying more and more throttle, so now I am full throttle, and there we go. Definitely a struggle. So it took a lot of effort from that rear motor to push us off the rollers. And typically when this happens, these vehicles also struggle not only off-road, but they struggle a little bit in snowy and adverse conditions. You might say, well, this test is too extreme for a vehicle like the Corolla Cross. No one is off-roading these things. But the thing about the slip test is it not only simulates a muddy off-road course, it also simulates just typical everyday winter driving, right? Because you need all four wheels to respond with precision and also with confidence to get you unstuck if you're like in the Midwest or the Northeast or wherever where you get a lot of snow. So pretty disappointing result in that first test. But now we're going to test number two, the diagonal slip test. So the left front wheel and the right rear are stuck in the rollers. Now imagine you're driving up on like a snow-covered curb. You release some weight on a couple opposite ends of the car. That's what this test simulates. So we're neutral, into drive, foot off the brake, onto the accelerator. And the key here is we don't just jam on the accelerator. Okay, the traction control is really letting a lot of spin here. The key is to activate the throttle pedal smoothly, like you would if you were stuck in the snow. Now that's full throttle. Okay. Okay, so a couple things going on here. First of all, not only do we have that front to back interaction that we had on the first test, but now we have the side to side interaction. And with this all-wheel drive system that doesn't have differential locks or limited slip differentials, it's supposed to be using the brakes to kind of grab those wheels that are spinning to force wheel speed over to the other end of the car, which it did, but it took a lot of thinking. So I'm not that confident about this next test. Okay, so now for something very difficult. This is the three-wheel slip test. This is the next in our standardized testing. Both rear wheels are stuck. One of the front wheels is stuck. Only one front wheel is on the ground. In this case, it's the right front. So all of that power is gonna have to go to that corner if we're gonna get unstuck. Now this is typically more extreme than you find in an average daily driving situation, but we like to push these all-wheel drive systems to the limit to see how they work. That's our goal here, so that you don't have to when you buy this car for your Michigan winters. So in neutral, we're settled, into drive, and rolling onto the accelerator here. So we're getting a lot of wheel spin, but not a lot of traction control intervention, which is really what we need. Wheel spin is fine, I guess, but the problem is we need that brake to slow down that wheel to force wheel speed over to that one on the ground. Now I'm gonna try a different drive mode. Let me go into the sport drive mode, see if that helps at all. That did not, in fact, help at all. Let me go traction control off. Let's see if that helps at all. Making it a lot worse, actually, because we're not getting any intervention there at all. So let me try it one more time with traction control on. There's no kind of trail mode in this car, or off-road mode. nothing. Now I'm just gonna have to kind of cheat to get off. So it's failed the 3-wheel test. Let me see if I can get it to grip on the side of the rollers like that and get us down. But that was a kind of a disappointing result from the Corolla Cross. So not only is there not a lot of force being applied by that rear motor, there's not a lot of left to right intervention going on whatsoever. So it's a very mild all-wheel drive system that in a lot of ways behaves more like front-wheel drive system. It feels very front biased. Yes, that rear motor is there to kind of give some light assistance, but there's not a lot going on back there at all. And if it can't pass that front wheel slip test, it's not going to pass the rear, because that's where the majority of the power is coming from. So we're going to call it here and move on to our next thing. With the Toyota Corolla Cross up on the lift, we can check out some of the engineering features. Now, of course, this is not an off-road based vehicle, so we are going to find a bunch of aero paneling, but no real skid plates or recovery points, because this is meant mostly for on-road SUV use. Now, the front suspension is a McPherson strut front suspension, and this uses a transverse mounted 4-cylinder with an eCVT, and this is the big deal about the eCVT. It's not a belt and a cone like a traditional CVT. It's actually a set of electric motors and a planetary gear set. So it behaves like a CVT, and then you get some of that kind of high-end RPM whine, but you're not wearing out a belt. There's nothing to fail like that, which is pretty cool. Now, moving back, you're going to notice, once again, there's no drive shaft or prop shaft connecting the front end to the rear end. Instead, we get these orange high voltage cables. So this is a little protector here to let you know not to mess with that, but that's actually how it's delivering its power from the front of the vehicle all the way to the back. And then of course you've got that exhaust running right down the middle. Let's get our way to the back here. We're going to find a multi-link rear suspension, which is pretty cool. It's not a solid beam axle, which is great. And it is a spring setup and not a torsion beam setup. And then you can see right back here is that integrated electric motor and differential all in one unit. This is a 2025 Toyota Corolla Cross, and the eagle-eyed among you might notice that there is in fact a slightly updated version for 2026 with a crisper design and some better technology on the inside. But from a mechanical standpoint, these two should be essentially the same. So this video applies for 25 and older Corolla Crosses, and I also believe 26 and newer as well. Welcome to the Onyx Off-Road Andres Pit Course. Now this is our tumbleweed test ranch facility brought to you by Onyx Off-Road, the #1 off-road trail navigation software in the business. And what we're gonna do in this test is see how the all-wheel drive system performs in the real world. So clearly it didn't do very hot in our controlled test on the rollers, but maybe out in the trenches pit course, we're going to see a better result. Now these are these grooves cut into the earth at these little offset angles, and then we're going to place the vehicle into these grooves to see if we can get through them. Now I'm hoping that this 8.1 inches of ground clearance is enough to actually get us through the trenches course. So now I'm full throttle, got just a little bit of mud here. Come on, there we go. It's going to lift up that front wheel, and then we're going to gently set it into the hole. We can't take it much faster than this because we don't have the ground clearance to clear this. Now we're on 2 wheels, so we've got the right front on the ground and the left rear, and the other 2 are at a loss of traction. I don't think it's going to go much further than that. So we're getting a lot of wheel spin, but we're actually not getting a lot of useful torque delivery across the vehicle. So that is, I think, going to be a little bit of a fail. And now we've got this mud, so we're going to just have to even get out of the trenches. It's going to be a little harder than you think. That's full throttle going backwards. The car is barely responding. There we go. So I find this all-wheel drive system to be a little befuddling and actually how it works, in that it's very conservative, and then it just kind of lets go of any traction intervention and says, well, I've done everything I can, you're on your own, buddy. And when that happens, it can be kind of alarming. But let's make sure we can get out of this pit altogether. So we're gonna have this little climb here. Let's see if we have the torque to get up this little hill. Hopefully our tires aren't too caked in mud. This is just a Goodyear Assurance all-season tire. We're pointing up the hill, giving it some accelerator, and there we go. We were able to make it up, but definitely a little bit of a disappointing result from this vehicle. Now granted, It's not intended to be an off-road vehicle, so clearly, you know, for kind of wet or snowy roads, it'll probably be okay. But look, this is a class of vehicle that's kind of interesting in that some actually do offer some pretty good capability. For example, the Crosstrek, right, offers a lot of capability. You've got the Chevy Trailblazer, and the active trim is actually quite capable. And then you've got the older vehicles like the Jeep Renegade Trailhawk, which are really good in this kind of thing, let alone something like the Bronco Sport that has that crazy twin clutch rear end and skid plates and recovery points. So I'd like to see Toyota put a little bit more capability in the Corolla Cross, maybe in like a woodland trim. So not a stellar result from the Corolla Cross. Look, if you want more capability, you gotta get one of Toyota's dedicated body on frame four-wheel drives like the Land Cruiser, like the 4Runner. But even still, I'd expect a little bit more out of this all-wheel drive system in this Corolla Cross. And this just goes to show that not all Toyota all-wheel drive systems are the same. The higher end all-wheel drive systems work great, like what we saw in the Toyota Crown, but this Corolla Cross, a little bit disappointing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Head over to alltfl.com and we'll see you in the next video.